We've been patiently waiting all year for Witchbrook news. However, so far, it's been filled with mostly silence. But with one of the biggest weeks in gaming upon us, could it finally be the time for all this to change? Hello friends, Sarah Sunstone here, and welcome back to Thinking Out Loud. In today's episode, I'll be sharing my thoughts on what exactly might be going on with Witchbrook, and if we'll be hearing some official news from them anytime soon, based on some little clues that I've discovered. Please go ahead and shine that lovely like button for good luck, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel with your notifications on to stay in the loop. Otherwise, without any further ado, let's get right into it. So I really have been wanting to chat with you guys about what's going on with Witchbrook, because I feel like we've been super patiently awaiting their next developer blog or oracle, and I've personally always just been expecting the next one to show up each month this year, and so far we actually haven't gotten anything. In fact, the last official public update from the team was on December 16th, 2025, which was their last developer blog. At that time, the team had shared that they did some top secret playtesting to refine some balancing aspects of the game, which they noted as a massive milestone and super insightful for the team. Looking back at that, I think at the time, I just thought it was business as usual and we were going to be getting another developer blog or oracle in January, because at that point we were getting them on somewhat of a monthly basis. Now, since then, the team has been mostly active on the official Chucklefish Discord server, answering questions when they can and reassuring players that they are still aiming for that 2026 release. I've been doing my best to cover all the little tidbits along the way, and honestly, it has been reassuring to see that the team is still at least active in development, just not so active with larger scale updates and announcements. Now, to be completely honest, it does feel a little bit odd that they were so consistent with those developer blogs and oracles, which I covered them all, so be sure to check out my Witchbrook playlist, which will link in the description if you want to go back to any of them or if you haven't seen them at all. They're very insightful. They offer up lots of details and information about development, specifically with those blogs, and lots of fun lore building of the world of Witchbrook in the oracles. And I feel like they almost unofficially established through their actions of delivering these bits of news to us that we would hear from them at least once or twice a month between those two sources of communication. It became a part of our routines and something we would really look forward to. At least I certainly would. And in these updates, they would also often share features that they would showcase in future developer blogs that we haven't seen yet. So it does seem like they have planned to do more of these at the very least. So what would make them suddenly stop these communications for what's now been 5 entire months? They certainly don't owe us these blogs or oracles. It just feels off from what we grew to anticipate and from what became a bit of a routine. But I mean, given the fact that it is a small team of developers, this is a small indie team working on the project, and they do operate under a zero crunch policy. The only true explanation is just that they're deep in development. I did find one note from someone at Chucklefish who did share that the team members who usually put together things like the developer blogs are busy with working on the game itself, but there will be more blogs and oracles coming in the future. While this could be just, reason enough alone, I do still raise an eyebrow at this because, what would lead the team to be in a position where they have no extra time whatsoever to put together an oracle or a developer blog? I mean, it could be things like, life. It could be some unforeseen setbacks, but I keep thinking back to that last December developer blog where they shared that they did those playtests to refine balancing aspects of the game. I feel like that could have definitely been the factor that wasn't accounted for, that has changed things up, requiring more hands on deck, requiring more developer efforts, and taking away from the time that they could have put towards curating the oracles and developer blogs for us. It just feels like there must be something that maybe they hadn't accounted for in their initial game plan and timeline, but now need to while still aiming for that 2026 release window. And what I'm personally hoping for is the reason we haven't got any oracles or developer blogs or any announcements, big news whatsoever, is just because they are full steam ahead on the project to actually get it out the door this year. Because for me, if it's not going to be finished until next year, if they do end up having to delay it, I'd honestly rather them just settle into that and go back to their regular updates so we can see the game continue to evolve and be charmed by those amazing oracles as we wait. But that's just my personal opinion and preference. Now, I wanted to chat about all this right now because we're actually right at the dawn of what is one of the biggest weeks in gaming. So this week marks the start of the Summer of Gaming and Summer Game Fest, which features a huge number of showcases from the big AAA titles to small indie games, everything in between and all across genres. So could Witchbrook show up at one of these events with a big announcement like a release date? Well, let's take a look at some of the showcases where they could show up to maybe help us paint a picture of, what might be most likely. Keeping in mind, technically, they could show up anywhere. So first we have the Sony State of Play on Tuesday, June 2nd. It seems like it's a pretty big deal. It seems like it's going to be a big one because it was announced pretty early in advance compared to when they usually announce it. Now, the only way Witchbrook would show up here is if they're ready to announce that they will be releasing the game on PlayStation 5, which is currently an unconfirmed platform. But they have shared that they are investigating other options for platforms, so while it might not be super likely to see them here, it would make sense for that specific announcement. What might actually be more likely is them showing up at the Xbox Games Showcase on Sunday, June 7th this week. Not just because they have announced Xbox as one of their launch platforms, but because of this little clue. So Witchbrook was actually shared as a Play Day 1 on Game Pass title, and although it seems to have been removed now, they were temporarily included as one of the games shown in the Game Pass banner. So was this Xbox setting something up in the back end to get everything ready for release, or was it just a bit of a coincidence? Now, we do also have to consider the fact that Witchbrook made their gameplay debut at a Nintendo Direct last year on March 27th. So it's now been over a year since they had a trailer or presence at a showcase. So it could also be planned for them to reappear at the next Nintendo Direct, since the game is launching on Switch and Switch 2, just whenever that might be. There is usually a June Nintendo Direct, but Nintendo is Nintendo, and they like to also just do their own thing, so who really knows? I don't personally really foresee Witchbrook showing up at any third-party showcases, though it certainly remains a possibility. Normally for a simulation or cozy game, I would actually expect to see it at a third-party showcase, like a Wholesome Direct or something like that. But it does seem like with Witchbrook, they're really wanting to go big with their announcements. And so I think if they can manage to get into any one of the big three's events, I think they would go for it, especially for something like a release date announcement. Personally, for me, the biggest shock would actually be seeing it at Summer Game Fest officially. Not because I don't think it's possible, but I think that would just blow me away to see it at the main stage, at the main event of Summer Game Fest. I think that'd be phenomenal for the game to get a ton of eyes on it, but only if they're ready to commit to their release, because with more eyes on it comes more heat if they don't deliver. So honestly, if Witchbrook does show up at any single one of these events this week, or a potential unannounced Nintendo Direct whenever that might land, then their silence could make a lot of sense. They're gearing up for this big announcement. They're finishing up the game. They don't want to share anything leading out to this big moment so it can pack a big punch. And honestly, they're probably also contractually bound in some ways, depending on the showcase, so they can't say anything. In fact, someone actually directly asked the team if they would be at one of these showcases, and their official response was that they technically can't confirm or deny these sorts of things. So it could be 50-50 on if that means yes or no, of course, but I just personally think we wait and see what happens this week. Which, by the way, if you want to actually come watch with me, I'll be live streaming Sunstone screenings for the State of Play, Summer Game Fest, Wholesome Direct, Future Game Show, and Xbox Game Showcase this week as one of my membership perks for the Sunstone tier and above. Also, just in general, if you guys do appreciate my content and would like to support me extra with a membership, please go ahead and click the join button to learn more about the variety of perks that I offer. My lovely channel members really make everything here on the channel possible. So if you'd like to join the Gemstone family, we would love to have you. If all those summer showcases pass us by and there's no Witchbrook. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but the silver lining is we are going to get a ton of awesome announcements this week and beyond. There is a lot to be excited for in the world of gaming. There are lots of simulation, cozy, and games across genres releasing this month, next month, the month after that, and beyond. So at the end of it all, it will be okay, but I am really hoping that we see something from Witchbrook. But there you have it, friends. Those are my thoughts about what's going on with Witchbrook. Just wanted to share a little bit of how I'm feeling and, maybe what we might be able to expect from official announcements coming up based on some actual little bits of information, some little clues, and then honestly, just some speculation. So feel free to share your thoughts with me down in the comments. Do you think we're going to be seeing some announcements from Witchbrook anytime soon? Or what about the blogs and oracles? Do you think we'll see those return later this year? Anything and everything, I always love hearing from you. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. And until next time, take care.